You are listening to Booming Your Bottom Line, arguably the #1 small business podcast for owners who want to reach aging baby boomer consumers, create amazing customer experiences, and grow their companies in the process. Hosted by veterans of the aging boomer niche, Mark Hager and Aaron Murphy. These two are your experts to help you navigate the silver tsunami and dominate your local market. In the next few minutes, you are guaranteed insight, tips, and actionable information to help drive your company to even greater success. Get ready to supercharge your business.
Welcome to Booming Your Bottom Line. This is a weekly podcast where we talk about how to start and grow or expand your existing small business by serving the needs of the aging baby boomer consumer. They're growing at 10,000 people every day. We're here to help you understand what to do, how to do it, and help you learn to profit from this growing market segment. I'm Aaron Murphy, and with me always is my co-host, Mark Hager. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Aaron. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Okay, so last week we covered part 2 of a 3-part series on accessible business for an aging population, where we talked about the physical accessibility of your place of business. And we walked through the customer from parking to purchase and many of the accessibility opportunities along the way. It was really, really good stuff.
Yeah, that was a great segment. Opportunity is a really good word here to describe accessibility for your small business. Because how accessible your business is as far as physical accessibility, your people, and the process that you do business with can really influence the kind of experience your customers have. And a great customer experience means more repeat customers and referrals, especially with the boomer demographic.
Yep, absolutely. So this week we're moving on from physical accessibility to your other business areas, such as how you do business, and that is how easy or difficult it is to do business with you, and how that affects your customers' experience, as well as how your employees interact with customers. Okay, so before we dive in, there's one thing that I would like to bring up. If you hold on to something because that's the way it's always been done, or that is the way that is convenient for you, then you're essentially shooting yourself in the foot. If you think the way that's always been done applies to the next 20 or 30 years, you're very mistaken. That's an ostrich with its head in the sand. You won't like where you end up, and you will be way behind your competition. Right. So, you have to approach accessibility like you would anything else. What works for your customers has to be balanced with what works for your business. And just because it's good for you doesn't mean you should do it, and vice versa. But I would caution you to err on the side of the customer experience.
Good point. So what processes do you have that if you sincerely question the way you're currently doing business, likely hack off your customers and make it difficult to do business with you, or at a bare minimum, it's somewhat less appealing? Can you think of any of those? Honestly, it's probably going to take you a few minutes to come up with something, because most of us don't think like that. But you need to, and you need to do that now before it's too late.
Yeah.
Oftentimes business owners are kind of wired to stand it up, get it running, and then move on to the next thing, and not pay attention to what's already up and running, looking at those opportunities where you might be able to refine and streamline things. It's not that owners don't care, but they're oblivious to what's running in the background once they get it up and running sometimes. Mm-hmm. Or they don't take time to deal with something when it comes up as an issue, and they don't look at it with that mentality of, how can I make this system or script or operation work better?
Yep. So your first order of business is starting to look at your business processes through the eyes of your customers. Seriously, it's a must. You have to get to the point to where you understand what they're going through, or you'll never be able to make it better. If you can't relate, you can't connect. If you can't speak from a position of empathy, you won't be able to gain their trust and get that rapport. So, start thinking about every step along the way from visit to purchase. How is that experience for your client? And if you don't know, you need to ask them. Yeah. You know, I think that every day you should ask at least one random customer if there's something about your place of business, their experience, or something that you're doing in your organization that doesn't make sense to them, or maybe even seems overly difficult for them. You know, something, get their perspective. And also, I think you need to look for the stupid rules, for lack of a better term. And I know that sounds a little harsh, but seriously, look for things that don't make sense for the customer, even though it may make sense to you. In other words, filling out the same information on 4 different forms, 3 pages each, and answering the same questions 12 ways to Sunday. If you are doing things like that, you need to cut it out, because it's going to hack them off.
Yeah.
And also, you need to look for the customer traps. Again, looking at it from their point of view and not yours. Do your customers, for example, loathe your automated phone system? Do they get trapped back and forth conversations, and being transferred from department to department, or even get the robot voices when trying to get things resolved? Are they answering the same questions for 3 different people? If so, you've got to stop that. They will leave eventually, especially if they find someone who's not doing that. If they get to, just for the lack of a better example, if they call and they get to talk to a real human from your competitor, that's bonus points. And I know this is not all about, phone systems, but that's just a really good example.
Yeah, just getting lost in a system of trying to get answers. So, and you're right, they'll leave you. So let's talk about your staff and your employees now. You do need to establish some agreements with them around how your customers should be treated, not just verbally, but also body language, the amount of effort that an employee is expected to put into helping your clients and their customers while they're in the store. Okay, I use the word agreement on purpose here. Your team, and you need to be working as one unit in unison. There should be a consistent message, delivery, mission, and passion from every one of your staff members when they interact with your customers.
Absolutely.
So, be clear about your expectations of your staff. Okay, they need to be clear of their understanding of your expectations. Make sure you guys are all on the same page. They shouldn't have to guess what you want from them. Mm-hmm. And then be clear also, on whatever you guys agree on. We've talked about this in past episodes. Get their input, and then go ahead and document this and cover the information repeatedly over time, on some regular basis, whatever it is for you, staff meetings or whatever the case is. So when you're talking to your staff about how to treat customers, be sure you cover some subject matter and some of these topics: greeting customers, small talk with customers, starting a lead-in with, can I help you find something, or can I answer a question from you? And smiling a lot, okay? They need to know that you're happy they're there and you're happy to help.
Yeah.
And make sure your folks are working in the present, okay? They need to understand that when they clock in, they're in full-on customer service mode. And then talk about examples of older customer interactions that you guys have had. You as the owner, before you got to where you are, sitting in your position, or folks, real things they're having going on the floor. We want to talk about how you handle those and run that stuff through on a kind of a case-by-case trial and error discussion. Get into conversations about the tough stuff, okay? And make sure that your group knows that this is an opportunity to better yourself for them too, as an employee, as a career, okay? And make sure they understand that these challenges are chances for lessons learned. So review the past. It's going to be a great teacher for you. And then for those things that weren't working well, you won't repeat the past.
Absolutely. Now, these are general ideas, of course. We have to keep it this way in podcast sense. Every company and team is different, and we can drill way deeper, if we were working with you individually, or, in doing group coaching and diving right into your situation specifically with your business. And obviously in this format, we can't know the dynamic of your company or the personalities involved in your organization. So this is just some general terms. But when you're meeting with your team and to discuss what being accessible means, I think you have to have those discussions without a critical eye on the staff. This isn't a finger-pointing exercise. You need to view this as the leader of your organization. And it's an opportunity for you to improve things for your customers, but it's also an opportunity for you to improve things with your staff. And I think another thing is when you have these meetings, you need to not tell them things. You need to ask. Then you listen, then you repeat. The folks that you have right there in your place of business with boots on the ground, they're going to be able to provide you with firsthand insight, often better than you can get even doing a random sampling with your customers. You ask, and ask again. You ask your staff, you ask your customers, and these are the quickest ways for you to be able to see holes in the way that you're doing things, things that are stumbling blocks to your customers. It does require honesty in looking at yourself as a leader, at your business, and you're going to expose weaknesses, but you got to buckle up, and it will be worth it.
Yeah.
And I'd also, since we're talking about staff, I'd like to offer an opinion about finding the right people. I don't like to go, meddling in people's business and how their hiring process, but I've spent years building teams, and this one nugget has been worth its weight in gold, and it's this. When it comes to hiring customer-facing positions, you should be hiring a people person, not a skill set. You can find, for any given position, you can find 50 people that have, X skill. But for customer-facing positions, if they aren't good with people, they will do more harm than good.
Yeah, that's a fact. I know I've been through that just growing my own firm, and, who do you trust in front of folks with your brand, your name, your baby that you built? It's like the first time you hire a babysitter. It's a scary thing. So good point. I think we want to stop here for today. Make sure you join us next week when we are going to start another series, a discussion on being caregiver friendly, another must-have portion for your business approach in the next 20 or 30 years. It's a magnificent and a major opportunity for small business.
Absolutely.
And a true way to set yourself apart, and potentially a hugely profitable one for that company that can get it right. You'll hear a lot of things in the news right now about, it's not just boomers, it's sort of 40 plus. And that's why, okay, we're going to get into the why and the caregiver side. So we want that company that gets hugely profitable to be yours. So tune in again. We're going to cover the opportunity itself, and in that demographic mindset of the 40 plus, as well as what it means to be caregiver friendly. And as we always do, we're going to give you some specific and actionable items and tips on how to make that happen. So visit our website, sign up for our weekly insider tips newsletter over at ageandplace.com/small business. We share some stuff on there every week that we don't have time for here. So if you're missing out on the free extras, don't do that. Okay, go over and sign up. If you have any questions, or you want us to cover a particular topic on our podcast, or if you see the value add that we're bringing you every week here, and you really want to dig in this year and work with us personally to grow your own small business, if you recognize that we're serious about this opportunity, you don't want to be left out or left behind and lose out to your competition, go ahead and give us a holler. Get a hold of us as soon as you can, okay? Just email Mark at smallbusiness@ageandplace.com so we can schedule your initial interview call.
Yeah, and please do us a favor. If you like what we're doing for small business owners with these weekly podcasts, and you think we're providing value, please share us. Please share one of our podcasts on Twitter or Facebook, or LinkedIn. Email it to a friend and ask them to check it out. Again, it's ageandplace.com/small business. It takes a village a lot of times to get something right, and this is a monstrous issue, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge not only for you as a small business owner, but it is a challenge for your community, and it is a challenge for our nation. Yeah. So sharing what we are doing, it will help us, but it's going to help other people, your peers, and communities across the nation. So we would surely appreciate if you did that. So take 5 seconds and pass it on if you don't mind. We appreciate you all being here and tuning in. We hope you have a wonderful week. Be well, be blessed, and boom your bottom line.
Have a good one.
If you would like to work with Mark and Aaron, have any questions about the show, or have a topic you would like them to cover that would help your business, please send an email to smallbusiness@ageandplace.com or call 865-236-1247. You will find the podcast archive, articles, and more to help you as you build your company at ageandplace.com/smallbusiness. Booming Your Bottom Line is a joint venture of ageandplace.com and Empowering the Mature Mind.